Welcome to Learn Self-Storage. My name is Ann Perrin, President and owner of Joshua Management, which specializes in property management for the self-storage industry. Today I'm going to talk about not only the importance of performing a store audit, but also how to perform an audit. I would like to walk you through step by step most important things that you will need to be looking for when you personally perform a store audit. So let's get started. Let's first talk about the objectives of the audit. The first objective is to ensure that procedures are being followed that you have established for operating your store. Now, if you haven't established those procedures, that's another lesson, and we'll have to talk about that later. But right now, if this would be a good place to start, even if you don't have procedures followed. The next thing is that you are trying to monitor your employees' performance. You want to make sure that your manager is minding the store, so to speak, in the way that you want him to. And the third and probably most important objective is to protect the owners from theft or neglect. This is a very important real estate asset for you or for your owner, and this is something that needs to be monitored. When to perform an audit? First thing that I want to tell you is that I always perform an audit early in the morning because it's cooler, or it might be that it's going to take a long time, so we start early. And you wear comfortable shoes and comfortable clothes and always have plenty of water. I like to monitor and audit my stores on a quarterly basis, and that's as a minimum. Some people decide that they'd like to do it every 6 months, but I find that the sooner that you find problems in your manager following procedures, the sooner they can be reconciled. I also always do an audit in the middle of the month because the most important and the most busy time in your store is always going to be at the beginning and ending of the month. That's when most of your move-outs and move-ins occur, and also that's when your manager is taking payments. And I almost certainly always audit whenever there's a change of managers. Your new manager deserves to have a clean slate to start with. And this way you find any problems that the previous manager was causing and you start from square one. This also gives your new manager an idea of exactly what you're looking for in operating your store. And lastly, never ever do an employee evaluation without doing an audit first. There's no way for you to be able to really tell how well your manager is performing unless you do a store audit. And the last thing that I would like to suggest is that if you ever have any suspicion that anything is wrong, if something just doesn't sound right or just doesn't look right at the reports, then absolutely go and audit your store. Let's start with our audit checklist on what kind of reports you're going to need. The majority of the self-storage software that is available now has these type of reports. I've given them kind of generic names, but I'm going to explain to you exactly what each report contains. The first and most important report that you're going to pull is a rent roll or a walkthrough list. A rent roll is going to give you in detail exactly who is renting from you, what units are leased. They should also give you a listing of what units are not leased. This will usually be with either in a numerical order by unit or within the customer name order. If you have a choice, pick it through the unit number order. Or the best list to work through is your walkthrough list, because this report is organized in a way that it is exactly how your units are organized within your facility. And that's the easiest way to walk through and check each unit. The second report that you're going to pull is your delinquency report. You should always know who hasn't paid and what status they are on delinquency. The third report is an auto pays for credit card. Because you're going to be checking the files for certain forms that authorize you to do that, your software should give you a listing of who automatically gets paid by credit card on a monthly basis. The next report will be discounts given. This report will show you exactly which units were given discounts throughout the month or throughout the quarter. Next, a petty cash report. This petty cash report is going to show you what items were purchased from the petty cash to operate the facility by the manager. A deposit report is going to show you what deposits were done either on a daily, weekly, or biweekly or monthly basis. Fees waived report is going to show you within that quarter what fees the manager waived for what customer. And then, of course, your gate activity report, which is very important because this is going to show you who is coming in and out of your property on a daily basis. If you have 24-hour access, this is very important because you're going to want to see who is coming in at late hours. Starting with the unit checklist with your walkthrough report, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to walk your property, and you're going to check for locks on rented units. Every single unit that is leased should have at least one lock on it, and it should match up to the report that you have in hand. The other thing you're going to check for is overlocks. These are the units that are going to be locked with a second lock done by your manager because they are in a delinquent status. And the third thing you're going to do is you're going to check your empty units. The units that are not leased, they should have some type of a colored tag on that unit designating that it is empty. Open those units and look at them for cleanliness and leasability. When you're looking at a unit, there are certain things that you can look at very quickly to determine if it is ready to be leased. First off, is it clean and swept out, free from bugs and debris? The next thing is make sure you have no leaks, because that is a nightmare for a self-storage facility. The third is, was that door easy to open? Did it take any effort? Does it need to be adjusted? The next thing is that hasp needs to be lined up properly, that when you slide the hasp through and put on a lock, it's an easy procedure to follow. Remember that most of your customers are not familiar with self-storage, and that might become an issue with them. The next thing that you're going to check as you walk through your property after you're doing your units or while you're doing your units is your climate control buildings and their temperature that is set properly. One of the misnomers about climate control is that grandma's furniture needs to be a comfortable 68 degrees. That is not necessarily true. Climate control just really needs to control the humidity within the air and keep a set amount of temperature. A lot of money is wasted on facilities through the improper setting of climate control temperatures. Also, as you walk through, check for your either sensor lights or if your lights are on a timer, make sure that they work. Sensor lights should come on as you walk through the aisleways, and timers should operate on the designated time that you have set. The other thing you're going to always look for is an overall cleanliness of each building. Stand back and look down each aisleway. How does it present itself? Is it clean and pristine? Are those floors shiny and bright? You want to be sure that your doors are free from dust and dirt. Also, this is a good time to check your fire extinguishers as you walk through and make sure that their expiration dates are current. Let's go next to our overall property checklist. As you drive through or walk through your property, be sure that there is absolutely no trash on the drives. Your manager should be doing this at least twice daily. And even look for that little cigarette butt because that can always give a bad impression. Make sure you don't have weeds coming up through your concrete or your asphalt. Your manager should always have a bottle of weed control spray within their golf cart so they can drive up and down each aisle and spray for any stray weeds. Always check your dumpster area. This can be a real problem, especially because customers are not always really good about throwing things in the dumpster. Your manager should be checking this daily. Everything needs to be clean around the dumpster. And like I said before, climate control floors should be swept and mopped, and there should always be a nice high shine. If you have storefront doors, make sure that they are free from fingerprint streaks and dirt, and that your manager is cleaning them periodically. And one of the most important things for your buildings is to check your gutters. Your manager should be on a cleaning the gutters procedure on a regular basis. Gutters that are filled with leaves and debris cause leaks. And the next and last thing that you need to be sure and look at is that golf cart. Is it clean and well maintained? Are there no rips on the seat, no trash within it? A lot of times managers use that golf cart to pick up trash and they forget to take the trash out. That golf cart is a lot of times one of your first impressions for your customers. You want to be sure that it's a good impression. Once again, stand back and look down your drives. What kind of impression does it make? Is it free from trash and weeds? Does everything look clean and pristine? Are your cameras pointing in the right direction? Are your bollards nicely painted? Be critical when you look at your facility. I like to think that every time I look at my facility on an audit, that I'm looking at it as if I'm trying to sell it. What would a potential buyer think? What would they be looking at? Next thing you're going to do is you're going to move over to the office and start doing your audit within your office. I always start with the cash drawer and the petty cash drawer first. The cash drawer is what you're going to have on hand for cash to give as change. If you decide that it's a certain amount, such as $50, you are always going to be sure that there is $50 on hand within that cash drawer. Your manager should audit that on a daily basis, either at the beginning or the ending of the day. There should always be some type of paperwork within that cash drawer that shows that that manager has done that audit. The next is your petty cash. Petty cash on hand is for incidentals that are helping to operate the store, such as resupplying the candy bowl or perhaps buying that Windex. Be sure that the petty cash audit has a sheet attached to it that will have each receipt that the manager has acquired through purchases of these items. Retail inventory. You can pull the retail inventory from your software usually. This is going to tell you exactly what type of retail items you need to have on hand. If you should have 50 large boxes, then that's the number that should be counted. Personal property inventory. It's always a good idea to make sure that all of the personal property that has been bought for the facility is on hand. If you bought a drill for your manager to use in cutting locks, or if you brought a leaf blower for him to clean the property, that needs to be readily available, and you should be able to account for those. Computer audit. This is something very important because there's a lot of what we call dead time within self-storage that managers have to contend with. Be sure that your computer is free from unwanted games and many other things that managers will want to put on that computer to while away the hours of him not having a lot to do. And next, look at the general appearance of your office. Is it friendly and is it clean? Does it look like a nice place to come in and do business? At the same time, you're going to look at your display racks for your retail. Are items easily accessible? Does each one have a price readily available for the customer to see? Is there anything missing? Also, this is a good time, like I said, to take a critical look at your office. Is it warm and inviting? Does it look like a place that customers will want to come in and do business? Do you have items readily available upon the desk for the customer to look at? Next, we're going to move to tenant files. At this point, randomly select a group of tenant files. I would advise no less than 50. As you go through each one of the tenant files, these are the items that you're going to look for. Always be sure that you have a signed lease. It usually needs to be signed by the person who is renting the unit and also by the manager. If there's any other items on that lease that needs to be checked, then check them at that time. Many times we require that people put down an alternate contact or who is allowed within the unit if that person is not there. Always look for a copy of a driver's license. This is very important. Your manager should not lease any unit without some type of photo ID. And then, of course, be sure that there are insurance forms within that file. Whether you offer insurance to be paid for with the time of the lease and the payment, or you offer a form for the customer to go out and buy their insurance on their own, be sure that there is some type of signed form that ensures you that the customer has taken responsibility for their personal insurance for their goods within your unit. Credit card authorization. This form is going to authorize you on a monthly basis to charge their credit card for their monthly rent. If you do not have this credit card authorization within their lease packet, then you will run the risk of having that charge challenged on a monthly basis. Any additional forms that you require your manager to have within that customer file, check for these at this time. Any change of address, move out notice, etc. needs to be within that. And also, what we have run into lately is that we need to have a delivery of goods authorization form. A lot of times, small businesses are using self-storage to store their items, and they will have UPS come and deliver those goods. Depending upon your state, and you need to check that out for certain, there will be certain laws that require that you have written authorization to allow that person delivering those goods within the unit. Or perhaps you're just going to let them store it within your office and have to be picked up with 24 hours. Detail in the paperwork is extremely important, and every time you get a chance, you need to reinforce this with your manager. The next thing we're going to move to is delinquency. And within your delinquency checklist, the first thing you need to do is review what kind of customer contact your manager has had with each delinquent customer. Each customer has to be handled according to the state's current lien laws, and you should always have a written form of that procedure on hand at all times. When you review customer contact, make sure that there is recorded in writing a phone conversation that has taken place, the certain number of times that your manager has tried to contact that customer. Usually there is some type of a certified mail requirement within most lien laws. Make sure that that also is being followed according to the certain days of the requirement. Review the tenant's in lien status. Most softwares will place a status of delinquent tenants within a 1 through 5 or 1 through 10. The closer you get to the higher number, the closer that person is to auction. Each time that they reach a certain level, make sure that all the paperwork that's required is within that person's file. Confirm your auction checklist and check all the paperwork. You are never at any more risk than when you take a customer to auction. So checking the paperwork at every single stop is a very good idea. Discount and waive fees is a way for a lot of facilities to lose money. Every single discount should be reviewed by management, whether you do it on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis. A lot of times, softwares permit managers to give discounts without getting permission from upper management. That's why discounts need to be reviewed. Each discount needs to be justified. Also, you need to review all waived fees. Many times, managers become friends with current customers. And even though we expect a certain percent of our revenue to be through fees, that customer can get those fees waived more than once or twice. Establish some type of procedure or policy that only enables your manager to waive a fee once. And now also review any rate variations. Rate variations are those customers that have been with you for some time, and you may have raised the rents since they have become your customer. Always review and see what type of rents needs to be raised on existing customers to bring them closer to the existing street rate. There are some miscellaneous items that always need to be checked. If you have a resident apartment manager, then you need to inspect that manager's apartment. When you hire that person and they move into that apartment, be sure that you have a written apartment lease and signed by both of you. Within that, you should have the ability to check that manager's apartment upon demand. At this time, you'll be able to see if any damage has been to the apartment or if he has maintained the apartment up to your standards. The next thing to inspect that's often overlooked is the cart room. This is a lot of times where resident managers like to gather a lot of materials. Make sure that it's organized and that items can be well accessed. Also make sure that this is a good time to check the golf cart's batteries and to make sure that there is a good charging system. Always be sure and go into the public restroom. This can really give you a bad impression if you have a filthy public restroom. The manager should be checking this absolutely on a daily basis and at least keeping it clean once a week. Another thing that gets overlooked is landscaping. How nice is your landscaping? If you hire a landscaping company, this is the time to make sure that they're doing exactly what you have required them to do. Does that landscaping add to the drive of appeal of your facility? And the next thing that you can do is a random calling of tenants. And just tell them who you are and that you're checking to be sure that they're happy with their experience of leasing from your facility. You can also call previous tenants and ask if they were happy with their experience. Customers a lot of times will be very, very glad to tell you if they're having any problems. The next thing that you need to do is get in your car and drive up and down the street. Take a very critical look at your drive-by appeal. Since the majority of your unit customers are going to come from drive-by, be sure that your sign is well lit and not worn or faded. Make sure that the marquee gets changed on a regular basis. And also, this is a good time to look at your landscaping. Is there any painting issues that need to be addressed? When you look at your facility as you drive by, is this absolutely a place that you would like to come and lease from? Or are there things that would bother you as a potential tenant? The final thing that you're going to do after you're finished with your audit is that you're going to review your findings with the manager, good and bad. But at this time, I want to warn you to be aware of too quick of an answer for any kind of a problem area. If the manager has an answer right away for an issue that's come up, that usually means that they have thought about what they're going to say if they're caught. Also, at this time, correct the improper procedures. Discuss with the manager what needs to be fixed and get him to agree to fix it. This is a good time to listen to any suggestions made by your manager. Try to incorporate some of those suggestions, no matter how little they may be. This gives him the feeling that he is participating within the overall management of your store. And lastly, reward a good manager's performance. I like to do things like give out gift cards or perhaps movie tickets or even a small bonus. This will continue to encourage him to do a good job for your property. That ends our lessons for today. Thank you for visiting Learn Self-Storage, and good luck on your audit.